Hey y'all, I'm Shakina Nafak, founding artistic director of Musical Theater Factory. Welcome to my home and welcome to my neighbor, Troy Anthony.
Hey, I'm Troy Anthony. I'm a composer, writer, maker, and in MTF's first Makers cohort, and newly a board member at Musical Theater Factory.
But more importantly, we live in the same building and we've made quarantine bearable.
So we wanted to have this conversation today, and this is actually something I really don't know a lot about, but how did the factory start?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because the formation of the factory is sort of inextricable from my formation as a trans woman. That's why I worked with the acronym MTF, which in like clinical terminology is also like male to female.
Oh, I get it.
Transsexual, as it were. When I launched the crowdfunding for my gender confirmation, I also launched MTF Musical Theater Factory. And what happened soon after is that I had a friend who from college who had come of age as a gay porn star and then was in his mid-30s already like ready to retire. But he had this incredible studio in Midtown Manhattan that was like literally a porn warehouse.
So it literally was a porn studio?
Literally, yes. Production and distribution, all in there. And he said to me, you know, I just feel like I got 9 months left on the lease, or 18 months was how much it was, a year and a half left on the lease, and he said, I just feel like I should just give you a key and tell you could do whatever you want in the back. I basically sent out an email to maybe 40 or 50 people, and it was just an open invitation to stop by. Like, this day at this time, we're gonna be laying a new floor, there'll be pizza. And people would just show up. This day at this time, we're moving in a piano. Like someday it would be a Broadway star coming by, and some days it would be, you know, someone who was still in school coming by. And so as we got together and we, you know, painted and hung lights and did wiring and cabling, we were also having these conversations about what sort of resources are lacking in the new musical theater making industry in New York City. Musical theater makers weren't having the chance to dialogue with each other about their work. And we thought, why not create an environment where the feedback is coming from peers rather than waiting for industry executives to give you access through like a dropped velvet rope, you know?
You know, what I love about this is that even from its inception, like it wasn't like you were building something for everyone to come into. It was like we were all everybody was trying to figure out, what is this container? What do we need? Like you were literally having like conversations with people.
Right.
And that's where the programming came from. I think the first like program that I was a part of was really one of the roundtables. So how did those come about?
We were having these talks about like why people kept saying there's no pipeline for writers of color or for trans writers. And we said, well, we're sick of that excuse, let's make our own pipeline. And so that's where the roundtables came from. And we had a POC roundtable and a women and trans writers roundtable, now women, trans, gender nonconforming, non-binary.
And you know, that's where I got like, in the POC roundtable, that's where I got my writing education. The feedback that I got from the writers and directors and actors in that room really shaped the way that I even know how to write. I realized that the beginning of my writing career is kind of privileged in the fact that I started writing around all people of color. So I just really started from this place of like, oh wait, like everything is possible. People kind of understood what I was trying to do and could help me make it better instead of being like, well, that's not how musical theater works.
Right, yeah.
Which I've experienced also.
Well, I think that like, sometimes explanation and translation are like the enemy of innovation. And if you have to constantly be, you know, I mentioned when I first created my very first solo show at the foundation of the factory, it was like all edutainment. It was like, okay, I'm gonna explain what trans people are, but we're gonna have a really great time, right. You know? And now to have an environment where Black folk don't have to explain their Blackness, where trans folk don't have to explain their transness, where like where there's a community of folks who are like already on the same page is really helpful for that early stage of generation, you know? that was really important from the jump with Musical Theater Factory.
And that thought leadership is really important right now. And I think it's important for people to understand that like diversity was not the bacon bits on the salad.
Diversity can't be the afterthought. It has to be the only thought.
Exactly.
It's honestly the prism through which light is refracted. And so if you build that, glorious crystal, knowing that it's all of those points of view. Every bevel is a different identity, is a different worldview. And then when you shine that light through, you get the rainbow. Exactly.
Is that right? She's like,
good
what?
now.
Are you all ready for my interview now? Hearing you talk about the way in which the factory was made and how it organically came from community, how community has always been at the center, I think that still lives, and I think it will always live.
Well, I love that the story of the factory is about artists driving the creation, not only of the art, but of the institution. You who came in the last days of the porn studio, the last night of the porn studio, and shared a song in a sing-along moment, then became a frequent participant in the roundtables, then became a maker, and now you're a board member. It's organic and coming up through the system of collaboration and peer evaluation and support.
Something that I always carry in my heart is Micah, pastor at Judson Memorial, once said, and I think he says this often, but like artists are the prophets of our current time. And I take that to heart.
Sure.
And I'm like, yeah, like I've done all this work to be able to receive these downloads. And like what I'm writing is really aimed at like, what do people need right now?
Right.
What do people need right now? And so it only makes sense that I have an organization that I can come to that started with the question, well, what do artists need right now? I'm really hoping that people start making different choices about how they use their resources. Like,
right.
Who are the people that really can lead us through this moment? Like, invest in them. Like, who are the artists? Who are the organizations that are really doing the work? Some organizations are probably gonna take some time, or gonna need to kind of course correct, but who are the people that are already and have been doing that work? I think this is a really great moment for people to reevaluate, well, like, what am I supporting? Like, who am I listening to? And I hope that like the individual work that we've been doing in this pandemic and all of the discussions and conversations that we have will really change the way that people are spending their money and using their time.
Well, friend, it's so delightful to sit on this couch and talk with you about these things.
It's great.
In front of a camera.
In front of a camera.
Because I feel like we do it all the time.
We do.
Anyway.
But it's great to have it in front of a camera.
In front of a camera, just documented.
Yeah.
We hope that you'll continue to support Musical Theater Factory and the artists at Musical Theater Factory and the art coming forth from Musical Theater Factory.
For anyone that's in a position to give, I want to remind you that when you're giving to Musical Theater Factory, you're supporting conversations like this one, and you're investing in artists that are using their biggest and brightest imaginations to think about what our world can look like. Musical Theater Factory, invest in us, change the field.